very, very small. But Tom is like number two to the association.
Good morning, Chair Bollendroff, members Garrett and Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Deb. I'll now convene the Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board meeting for Wednesday, April 23rd. Welcome. We will start with a motion to approve meeting minutes as they're listed on the agenda. So do I have a motion?
This is Ali. I move that we approve the meeting minutes as listed on the agenda.
Great, thank you. And since Member Holmes wasn't here for those meetings, I will second that, and that is approved. So thank you. All right, we will move right into our full agenda from our rules team, who's been extremely busy. And we'll start with our first agenda item, which is Jeff from our policy and rules team with a rules petition review and consideration for alcohol sales on trains. So Jeff, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Bollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. I am here this morning to present the Director's Office response and recommendation to the board regarding 3 rulemaking petitions, with each petition making the same identical request to the board to amend the law in RCW 6624-395. The board received these 3 petitions for rulemaking from Eric Mensis, Bev Wilson, and Mr. R.T. Williams, all on behalf of the Western Forest Industries Museum, the operators of the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad based in Elbe and Mineral, Washington. The Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad offers scenic passenger rail trips in Pearson Lewis counties near Mount Rainier National Park on historic railway cars pulled by steam locomotives. This request is to allow passenger trains offering short excursions or scenic trips inside of the state of Washington to provide the same or similar alcohol service on board to their passengers that is available on other common carriers, such as aboard large passenger airliners or aboard Amtrak trains. In addition to the petitioner's rulemaking requests, the Western Forest Industries Museum has been working diligently with the board's licensing division staff to identify other alcohol licensing options to expand the current range of licensed events available to passengers on the Mount Rainier Scenic Railroad. Several other alcohol license types are established by law in Chapter 6624 RCW, including a nonprofit organization alcohol license described in RCW 6624-495, which may be issued to any nonprofit arts organization which sponsors and presents productions or performances of an artistic or cultural nature. The issue for these 3 petitions can be described as whether the board should amend the RCW to allow passenger trains offering short excursion trips inside of the state of Washington to qualify for the same alcohol service that is available to federally licensed commercial common carriers operating in or over the boundaries of the state of Washington. The Washington legislature created the many types of licenses that are set forth in Chapter 6624 RCW. This RCW itself was adopted by the legislature as a new statute by a bill in 1975, which was called Engrossed Senate Bill 2670. As a part of the revised Code of Washington, this RCW or any other statute making up the RCW can only be created, changed, or repealed through a bill in the legislature or through a citizens initiative measure as set forth in Chapter 29A 72 RCW. So although the board lacks the lawmaking authority reserved for the legislature to change this or any other RCW, the board's licensing division has assisted the museum to apply for a nonprofit organization license, allowing for spirits, beer, and wine service on board the train excursions just as requested in these three petitions, and also a special occasion license allowing the Western Forest Industries Museum to provide alcohol service at other museum events that are not held on board the train. For these reasons described, Director's Office staff recommend that, consistent with RCW 3405-330, the board should deny the three petitions received from Eric Menses, Bev Williams, and Mr. R.T. Williams to amend 6624-395. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions from board members? Okay, thank you. I don't have any questions, but I will make a quick comment. I'm very familiar with the Western Forest Industries Museum, and as a train buff, I have actually ridden the Mount Rainier train. And so I appreciate the engagement from the museum and their staff to seek this approval. But given that we don't have the authority, I really appreciate also licensing's attempt to work with them and come up with a creative solution to meet their objective. And hopefully, we've also given them the indication that should they want to pursue this further, they can certainly reach out to members of the legislature. And speaking only as one board member, I certainly wouldn't oppose their request should they reach out to the legislature. So do I have a motion based on the discussion this morning?
I move that we adopt the staff recommendation to deny the petition on alcohol sales service on trains.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Ali.
Great, thank you very much. That is approved. Thank you, Jeff. All right, and Jeff, you are up again on action item number B, or action item B, which is approval of the CR 101 seasonal hours requirements for alcohol licensees. So go ahead and continue.
Thank you. Good morning again, Chair Volendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. Now I would like to ask for the board's approval to file a CR 101 package for rulemaking to consider amending WAC 314-02045. This proposed rulemaking would let beer and wine restaurant alcohol licensees easily make seasonal adjustments to their hours and days of operation for their beer and wine restaurants. This rule in WAC currently requires beer and wine restaurants to be open for business to the public at least 5 hours a day, 3 days a week, year around, in order to maintain their licenses. Many Washington restaurants experience variations in the numbers of customers that they serve throughout the year. This can be due to seasonal fluctuations in the number of part-time residents in their communities, or seasonal fluctuations in the number of visitors to their geographical area throughout the year. This is especially true in regions of the state such as the Washington Coast, the San Juan Islands, Leavenworth, and many other wilderness areas that attract visitors every year for seasonal outdoor activities. In December 2024, the board accepted a rulemaking petition to consider adjustments to the minimum hours and days of operation for beer and wine restaurants. Reducing the current requirement could help licensees save business resources during slower seasons of the year and still maintain the beer or wine licenses by opening to the public on 2 days a week, or maybe even on weekends only for 2 days a week. If approved, the CR 101 form will be filed today, April 3rd, 2025, and a public comment period will be open until June 5th, 2025. We plan to hold a stakeholder meeting in late May and to be filing a CR 102 with proposed rule language on or after June 6th, 2025. And if all goes smoothly in the rulemaking process, we plan to file a CR 103 with permanent rule language in August so that it could take effect in September. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you.
Any questions for Jeff? Seeing no questions. Thank you, Jeff. I do appreciate the request and the opportunity to demonstrate our willingness to work with businesses and recognize that seasonal hours are something that are real for certain businesses. And as an individual who goes to Lake Chelan several times a year in the summertime, and I've been there in the winter, there's definitely a decrease in traffic at certain times of the year. So having said that, I support this, and I'm looking for a motion from a board member for this particular item.
This is Ali. I move approval of the CR 101 for seasonal hours requirement.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second.
All right, thank you. That is approved. All right, thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to cannabis-related rulemaking, and Denise is up, who's going to present to us regarding packaging of cannabis edibles, a rule petition request and review. So Denise, you're up. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Chair Bollendroff and Board Member Holmes and Garrett. This morning, the Director's Office is presenting recommendations on 2 cannabis-related petitions for rulemaking, both submitted on February 27th by Caitlin Ryan, Executive Director of Cannabis Alliance. The first petition I'll present requests that the board initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 314-55105 to remove the requirement that LCB approve cannabis-infused edibles packaged loosely on a case-by-case basis. The reasons provided in support of this change include it would reduce plastic waste, it would enhance child safety by increasing the use of resealable packaging, and it would streamline LCB's review process. Under WAC 314-55105, packaging of edibles must comply with certain requirements. They must be packaged in child-resistant packaging and in plastic of certain thickness and sealed to protect persons under the age of 21 from accidental exposures. In addition, cannabis-infused edibles approved by the board on a case-by-case basis may be packaged loosely within a resealing outer package that is child-resistant. LCB currently doesn't receive many requests for this type of case-by-case review of edibles packaged loosely. Licensing Division estimates that less than 1% of the packages submitted to them for review are packaged loosely in this way. Making this suggested change would have essentially no impact on the LCB packaging review process, as all edible products are reviewed currently as part of their packaging review, regardless of the type of packaging. It is unclear how much removing this case-by-case review of edibles packaged loosely would impact the overall amount of packaging waste. Manufacturers will still be required to comply with other packaging requirements. If processors move to loosely packaged edibles, they would still need to incorporate resealable outer packaging, which may require additional costs. There may be some concern that switching to resealable packaging for loose edibles may result in overconsumption among adults and accidental exposures to children. The Washington Poison Center posted on their social media accounts last April that one of the most common calls they receive about cannabis is about little kids mistaking an edible for candy. Other states have additional packaging requirements related to child-resistant packaging or define child-resistant in their rules, including that packaging be opaque, that child-resistant packaging be maintained for multiple openings, and that packaging is certified as child-resistant by a third-party firm. These additional requirements might be considered during the rulemaking process. Packaging waste, though, appears to be an ongoing concern related to cannabis products, and we believe this issue warrants further consideration. In addition to the other petition I'll be presenting from Caitlin Ryan, LCB recently received comments related to eliminating the use of plastic tubes for pre-rolls, as well as a petition for rulemaking received in 2024 to ban disposable cannabis vape devices due to the use of non-recyclable lithium-ion batteries. LCB is currently considering opening, packaging, and labeling rules to include possible changes to child-resistant and other packaging requirements, and this petition would help inform that rulemaking effort. The likely priority for beginning this type of project is currently low based on other rulemaking needs, including legislative implementation from this session. As available resources may be limited, accepting this rule petition may cause stakeholder frustration if opening the rule project is not as timely as expected and not a priority amongst all the other active and pending rule projects. At this time, the Director's Office recommends denying this petition to address this request as part of future packaging and labeling rulemaking efforts when those are scheduled, and to address this request as part of future packaging and labeling rulemaking efforts when those can be scheduled. Based on this information, the Director's Office recommends the Board deny the petition for rulemaking submitted by Caitlin Ryan on February 27th, 2025 to amend WAC 314-55105 to remove the requirement that cannabis edibles packaged loosely must be approved by the Board on a case-by-case basis. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Denise, I have just one question. Have we reached out to Caitlin Ryan to talk to her about our rationale and decision-making prior to this?
I have not.
Okay, because I think that I appreciate Caitlin bringing this up and definitely want to look at reducing waste and that kind of thing, but just want to make sure that she's hearing clearly that we are interested in pursuing this and perhaps through rulemaking we'll be addressing it. So, okay, any other questions? Member Holmes, it looks like you wanted to say something.
No.
Okay. Board Member Garrett, anything? All right, thank you. Thank you very much. So based on the discussion, do I have a motion to deny the petition or accept the recommendations of the rules team?
I move that we accept the director's recommendations to deny the petition to amend WAC 314-55-105.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second?
This is Ali, I second.
All right, thank you. That's approved. All right, Denise, you've got part 2 of this petition, which is related to unit size and packaging of concentrates.
Yes. Good morning again. Chair Bollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. This morning, the Director's Office is presenting a recommendation on the second petition for rulemaking submitted on February 27th, 2025 by Caitlin Ryan, the Executive Director of the Cannabis Alliance. This petition requests that the board initiate rulemaking to amend WAC 314-55095 to remove the requirement that a single unit of cannabis concentrate cannot exceed 1 gram. The reasons provided in support of this request include the 1 gram unit requirement for concentrates creates unnecessary packaging waste. Removing the 1 gram unit requirement would improve customer convenience. This change would reduce the use of non-recyclable lithium-ion batteries. Multi-gram packaging options exist now, allowing processors to use existing child-resistant packaging, such as larger jar sizes. It would promote the use of better child-resistant options for packaging, as current multi-unit packaging is not child-resistant once opened, and it would be consistent with other states, as other states do not have the same 1 gram limit. A cannabis unit is defined in statute under RCW 6950-101 as an individual consumable item within a package of 1 or more consumable items in solid, liquid, gas, or any form intended for human consumption. Under WAC 314-55095, a single concentrate unit is defined as not to exceed 1 gram. The 1 gram limit for single units of concentrate has been in WAC since 2013. The 1 gram limit per unit is not in statute. Transaction limits are defined in statute under RCW 6950-360 and in rules in WAC 314-55095. The transaction limit for cannabis concentrates for inhalation is set at 7 grams for persons over 21 and 21 grams for qualifying patients. The petitioner requests removing the single unit requirement and having no effect on these transaction limits. Other states do not have the same 1 gram limit on concentrates. Other states limit the total milligrams of THC in packages or limit the percent of THC in concentrates. For example, Connecticut and Vermont specify a 60% THC limit in concentrates. Last year, over 30 million units of concentrate were sold in Washington. This includes several types of products, including infused pre-rolls, several categories of concentrates, including concentrates for inhalation, and food-grade solvent concentrate. It is uncertain whether making this requested change to packaging will significantly reduce packaging waste. Products containing larger amounts of concentrates would still have certain packaging requirements. Processors would still be required to package concentrates in either childproof packaging or minimum of 2 mil thickness materials to prevent easy access to children. Additionally, multi-gram packages would cost more for consumers than 1 gram products, and it is unknown what demand there will be for these larger, more expensive packages. As indicated with the previous petition presentation, packaging waste is an ongoing concern related to cannabis products, and we believe this issue warrants further consideration. LCB has received comments related to, as I mentioned, eliminating the use of plastic tubes for pre-rolls, as well as the petition to ban disposable vapes because of the disposable batteries. LCB is currently considering opening packaging and labeling rules to include possible changes to child resistant and other packaging requirements, and this petition would help inform that type of rulemaking effort. As mentioned earlier on the previous petition, the likely priority for beginning this type of rule project is currently low based on our other rulemaking needs. Accepting this rule petition may be frustrating for stakeholders if opening rulemaking is not done in a timely fashion and not a priority among our other active and pending rule projects. At this time, the Director's Office recommends denying this petition, but to address this request as part of future packaging and labeling rulemaking efforts when those can be scheduled. Based on this information, the Director's Office recommends the Board deny the petition for rulemaking submitted by Caitlin Ryan on February 27th, 2025 to amend WAC 314-55095. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I have one question, and Justin, this may be better for, or maybe for you, but so I agree with what you stated and appreciate, first of all, Ms. Ryan's recommendations, and think she does bring up some good points for us to consider. I've talked about the not taking too many petitions given our workload. And you mentioned in the future, we may be able to take this up. Do you have any idea, like if we did open up the rulemaking process related to packaging, what kind of timeline might we be looking at right now? Or do we have, is it too uncertain given the legislative session? Just trying to get an idea of what a timeline would look like if we open this up later.
Absolutely. Good morning, Chair Wallendroff, members of the board. As far as the rulemaking, so right now what we're looking at from the legislative implementation side of things is we've got at least 6 laws that are passing that we're going to have to implement with rule development, some of them fairly complex, such as 1515, which has to do with the all of the alcohol activity around the FIFA World Cup. And that's going to have to be done very timely because that's just around the corner. We also have on the cannabis side, the advertising provision passed. And so the other ones that we're looking at, and there could be up to 10 different bills that we're going to have to implement. There are still some potential tax and fee bills that are still pending that we're monitoring and seeing what may pass out of that. And so with those, and then also the other backlog that we're still trying to get to, I wouldn't predict that we would get to that until at least 2026, if not late 2026. So it kind of depends on what we're looking at. Next year is a short session, so we would anticipate not as many bills passing. So we hopefully can get to some of these things. very interested in looking at this issue, particularly around the waste issues. I think it can even go beyond just the edible packaging, because the predominant amount of waste, I believe, would be coming out of flower, since it's the predominant sales of cannabis in the state. And are there options on that type of waste reduction as well? So the topic is very interesting to us. We just can't commit. We don't, quite frankly, we just don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And that's really what we're looking at right now with those particular issues. So we're happy to continue the discussions and look for opportunities to fold that in as we're moving through. But the resource issue, and then not to put too much out there, but we also have a staffing leave of absence for a short period of time this year. So I have to plan around that over a couple month period. So that kind of comes into play with the resource issue as well.
Great. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that, Justin. All right. Any other questions from the board? Okay. So hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendations to deny the petition?
I move that we accept the staff recommendation to deny the petition.
Second.
All right. So that is approved. All right, Denise, you're up 2 more times. So let's go to the CR 102 minors on non-retail cannabis licensed premises discussion.
Right. Good morning again. This morning I'm here on behalf of the Director's Office to request approval of a supplemental CR 102 to amend WAC 314-55015 related to allowing minors defined as persons under 21 on non-retail cannabis licensed premises, provided certain conditions are met. If approved, there will be a public comment period open until June 5th, when we plan to hold the public hearing on the proposed rules. Assuming this public hearing doesn't identify any reason to substantially alter the proposed rules, the final rules will be requested for approval during a June 18th board meeting and will be effective on July 19th. This rulemaking is the result of 2 petitions from Crystal Oliver. The board accepted in August 2022, related to adopting and expanding a COVID allowance that was in place through December 2022, which allowed children and grandchildren under 16 years of age to be on the licensed premises of producers and processors, provided certain conditions were met. The initial CR 102 added 2 groups of minors to be allowed on licensed cannabis premises and the related with related conditions. The first group is children and grandchildren of licensees, and the second group is employees of contractors working on premises, such as in electrical, plumbing, and construction fields. This required adding new language to WAC 314-55015 in several places. The CR 102 was filed on February 28th. Of last year, and stakeholder engagements were held in September of 2024. Additional stakeholder input was solicited when draft rules were posted on our website in November 2024, and an initial CR 102 was filed on January 15th of this year, with a public hearing held on February 26th. The initial CR2 made several changes, including adding language from the temporary COVID allowance related to children and grandchildren of licensees that included allowing persons under the age of 16 as grandchildren and children of licensees, and prohibiting them from possessing products associated with production, processing, or sales of cannabis. New conditions were added and requirements for allowing those minors, including that the minors do not enter or remain in areas where cannabis is present, is supervised by the licensee while on premises, that the licensee must notify the LCB prior to allowing minors on premises to provide information about when the children would be present, and also violations for not meeting these conditions. New conditions and requirements were added to allow employees of contractors working on licensed premises that included that the worker must be at least 18, is employed by a licensed or registered contractor, and is on the premises only during the course of their employment. That they must be also supervised by somebody from their construction company who is at least 21 years old, and that licensees must note on the visitor log if a contractor employee was under the age of 21. And also, additionally, language was added to clarify that the entire premises remains off limit to weapons pursuant to RCW 9.34.300. Following the public hearing on February 26th and based on comments received from stakeholders during the public comment period, as well as input from the board, rule language was revised for a supplemental CR 102. Tables that show the proposed rules from the original CR 102 filed in January and the changes made for the proposed rules in the supplemental CR 102 for board action today are presented in the supplemental 102 material so people can follow what the changes were. The supplemental CR 102 includes the following changes from the original CR 102. Language was added to include process or premises as a location where children and grandchildren may be present. Language for violations of conditions and penalties under WAC 314.55.522 was moved to apply to all of subsection 3 related to children. Violations and penalties related to children being in areas where cannabis is present was removed, as language was added to allow children in these areas if accompanied and supervised by a licensee. Language was amended to indicate children and grandchildren of licensees may not enter or remain in areas where cannabis is present unless they are accompanied by and under the direct supervision of the licensee. A requirement was added that the licensee must be on premises when children or grandchildren are present, and the requirement was removed for licensees to notify the LCB prior to allowing any child or grandchild of the licensee to enter or remain on the licensed premises. And that also removed the requirement that the licensee provide LCB information about when the children would be present. And additionally, a requirement was added to include general contractors with supervisory authority to assure that employees of subcontractors on premises are supervised by somebody from their company who's at least 21 years of age. Most of these changes came from stakeholder comments received during the public comment period. These changes aren't expected to change costs assumed for the initial CR 102 and don't exceed the threshold that would trigger a small business economic impact statement. As I mentioned earlier, the public hearing is scheduled for Thursday, June 5th. This will be our first rulemaking public hearing outside of the usual board meetings per the new format. And information about the public hearing, including how to register to provide verbal comments, will be posted on our main rules webpage. We are working on creating a separate new email and webpage just for the rules public hearing information. We don't have that up and going yet. But information right now about what we have for the hearing can be found on our main laws and rules tab on the main LCB webpage. Any questions can be directed, of course, to the rules inbox, rules@lcb.wa.gov. Based on the information provided today, the Director's Office is requesting approval of the supplemental CR 102 to amend WAC 314.55.015 related to allowing minors on non-retail cannabis licensed premises under certain conditions. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Denise. Any questions? All right, seeing no questions, do I have a motion to accept the staff recommendations to approve the supplemental CR 102 regarding minors on non-retail cannabis licensed premises?
I move that the board approve the supplemental CR 102 for minors on non-retail cannabis licensed premises.
And this is Ali, I second.
All right, so moved. All right, now we'll move on to action item D, which is our last item. Again, Denise is presenting from our policy and rules team, and this is regarding a CR 103 to implement second substitute House Bill 2151 regarding the transfer of cannabis lab accreditation. So Denise, take it away.
So last time this morning, good morning, Chair Bollendroff and board members Garrett and Holmes. The Director's Office is officially requesting the board's approval of the CR 103 with final rule language to amend Chapter 31455 WAC to implement second substitute House Bill 2151 from last year. This legislation relates to the transfer of authority for cannabis laboratory quality standards and laboratory accreditation from the LCB to the Washington State Department of Agriculture. This rulemaking implements two main pieces of legislation, House Bill 1859 from 2022, and second substitute House Bill 2151, which passed last year. Department of Agriculture adopted rules last year to implement their new authority for lab quality standards and laboratory accreditation under their new chapters 16309 WAC and chapter 16310 WAC, respectively. Laboratory quality standards include testing methods and protocols cannabis laboratories must use when testing cannabis samples. Laboratory accreditation is the process that assures these laboratories are following laboratory standards to achieve consistent and accurate results. Department of Agriculture is currently in the process of approving cannabis laboratories for compliance with their new laboratory standards. Under RCW 695348, cannabis testing laboratories must obtain and maintain accreditation with the Department of Agriculture, and LCB will continue to certify laboratories. These final rules clarify that laboratories must first be accredited by Department of Agriculture in order to be certified by the LCB. Previously, R.J. Lee was contracted by LCB to accredit laboratories. LCB continues to have authority for setting quality assurance and product standards under RCW 695342 and enforcing these product standards, as well as enforcing other requirements, including related to reporting of test results to LCB, traceability, and laboratory disposal of cannabis waste. Proposed rule language reflects the transfer of laboratory quality standards and laboratory accreditation to Department of Agriculture. The main changes include repealing two WAC sections, 314.55.1025 and 103, and amending four WAC sections, 314.55.0995, 102, 1035, and 109. The main changes to these sections consist of removing references to accreditation and accreditation activities, adding references to Department of Agriculture rules for cannabis testing laboratory quality standards and laboratory accreditation, aligning terminology and other language with Department of Agriculture rules, moving any remaining rule language pertinent to LCB responsibilities that had been in the two repealed sections to amended sections. So retaining some language and moving those to existing sections, and then removing references to repealed sections. We filed the CR 101 to initiate this rulemaking on July 17th of last year, and we held two stakeholder feedback sessions in February where we received a variety of input from stakeholders. We also received input from Department of Agriculture and Department of Health as part of our regularly meeting class work group. The CR 102 with proposed rule language was filed on February 26th of this year, and the public hearing was held on April 9th. We received a total of 15 comments on the proposed rules during the public comment period, 12 written comments and 3 oral comments at the public hearing. 9 of these comments indicated concerns about the proposed rule language changed. Let me start that again. 9 of these comments indicated concerns that the proposed rule language changed reporting requirements related to R&D and non-mandatory samples. The language of concern was existing language that had been moved verbatim from a repealed section in WAC 314.55.103 to an amended section, 314.55.0995. And while our intent was never to change existing policy, the LCB recognizes that this proposed rule language change may have been interpreted that way based on the broader context of the rule. Accordingly, the word required has been inserted into one sentence in WAC 314.55.0995 subsection 3H in the final rule for clarification and consistency. That sentence now reads, certified labs must report all required test results directly into LCB's traceability system within 24 hours of completion. No other changes were made to the CR 102 proposed rules. We plan to schedule additional rulemaking to follow up on comments received during this rulemaking related to the reporting of non-mandatory and R&D samples into LCB's traceability system. This new rulemaking will be initiated with the CR 101 to be presented to the board this summer after these current rules implementing 2151 go into effect, as they impact some of the same rule sections. If the board approves the CR 103 today with final rule language, the rules go into effect on May 24th of this year. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Denise. Any questions for Denise?
I have no questions.
All right, seeing no questions, I apologize because I have to look on my screen over here to see Ollie, and then I have to look over to Pete, so the delay. Anyway, thank you, Denise. I appreciate it. And I appreciate all the work that everybody did. We all got a lot of comments related to this. And so a lot of effort went into crafting this. So I really appreciate that. So I'm looking for a motion to accept the staff recommendation of adoption of the CR 103 to implement Second Substitute House Bill 2151 regarding the transfer of cannabis lab accreditation.
This is Ali. I move that we accept the recommendation to approve the adoption of the CR 103 to implement Second Substitute House Bill 2151.
Second.
All right, so moved. Thank you very much.
Hey, I have a quick question. Justin, on the petitions that we denied, do they have to be a new petition since they are now not in the hopper? Or is that something we would just take on when we can?
Justin's on his way to the podium.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what we typically will do is have something in a very lay term called a parking lot. So we have ideas that are kind of pending that we would incorporate at a later time. So they don't need to draft a new petition. I mean, they certainly could at some point, but again, that's why we're trying to forecast that we're interested in the topic. It's something that we're going to keep on the radar to look at as we have that capacity available, instead of accepting something and not being able to get to it for quite an extended period. We already have some that are still pending from 2 years ago. So it's
Right.
But no new petition would need to be filed in order for us to move forward on rule development.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. All right, that takes us to our final item, which actually there is no final item. I will acknowledge that we received no written public comments, so there will be no written public comment to attach to the meeting minutes. And with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Bye, Ollie.